Started, okay? How's everybody doing? Okay. Got my professor board up tonight, so we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff. And we're going to talk about abundant energy. And I think that this is an important topic because I hear it all the time. People come in, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. Well, it's understandable if you just ran a marathon, but if you're doing a day-to-day activity and you're fatigued and wore out, wiped out, tired all the time, what's the reason for it? You know, is there an underlying condition? Is there something that needs to be dealt with? Or is there things that you're doing in your day-to-day life that are robbing you and sapping you of energy that shouldn't be? You know, for the average person, if they're, you know, from being a young adult to adulthood to even into the early elderly years, you should have plenty of energy to get you through a day and not feel fatigued. Now, does that mean that you should never feel like you want to lay down and take a little nap? That's okay. We'll get into that because that's pretty normal. But there's times and there's cycles and fluctuations during the day when you're going to feel more energetic and a little less energetic. It has to do with when you've eaten and how the rhythms of your body work, and we'll go into that stuff just a little bit too. But I think it's important, if we're going to talk about how to get energy, it's more than just, well, take this supplement, do this thing, and you'll have more energy, because it's different for everybody. Not everybody's going to be deficient in the same thing. So what I'd rather do is, you know, the old adage, you know, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, right? So I want to teach you how to fish. So we want to talk about a little bit more in depth. Where does energy come from? How does the body process food? How does it develop energy? How does the body work, and where does energy come from? And I think if you understand that, you'll be able to look at your own life and say, okay, these are the areas where I'm deficient. I want to do these things, and we're going to get into some biochemistry tonight so you can understand how the body works and releases energy. And I think if you understand that, you'll understand and be able to make better choices about the things that you eat, when you sleep, how exercise affects you, and how everything goes. So, like I said, small group, intimate group tonight. So the thing I like about that is, if you have questions, just fire away, okay? Sometimes with a bigger group, sometimes people don't want to do that, but with a smaller group, we shouldn't have any trouble with that. So. And like I always say, if I don't know the answer, I'll make something up. So we'll see if you know the difference, okay? So we'll see if I can stump you. Okay, overview. This is what I want to cover tonight, and we're going to go through a lot of stuff. So some of it I'll kind of fly through, and some of it that I'm going to kind of go through pretty quickly is pretty technical stuff, pretty deep chemistry and biochemistry stuff. But if you have questions about it, let me know. I just want to cover it because I want you to understand kind of the concept of where it comes from. But I don't think it's important that we understand all the nitty-gritty details, but I think it is important that you understand that there is a process in your body. So we're going to start with biochemical reactions and nutritional input. This is probably what people thought you were going to get when you come here. Like, what can I eat? What can I take? What can I do? How is that going to affect my body? And we're going to get into specifics of what foods create energy in what ways, okay? The cardiovascular system, the nerve system, nerve system, that's my favorite. That's our favorite around here, okay? So if we don't talk about the nervous system, we're doing something wrong as chiropractors, and that's a big part of this. Exercise, sleep, thought, okay? Dr. Hassel says it all the time. We kind of use it as our mantra. Think well, breathe well, eat well, sleep well, move well, move well. You have to do all these things to have health, okay? We can't take health and put it inside you. It has to be a combination. It's a recipe that we have to put together. Put it all together, we have the formula for abundant energy. You three are going to be the ones who are going to be hopping in and out of here from now on, because you're going to have the key, right? In all seriousness, I hear several times a day, I know Dr. Hassel, Dr. Thad, Dr. Brian get this too, people will say to us all the time, how come you guys are so smiley all the time? Or how come you're so, like, do you ever have a bad day? I'm told at Farm Bureau, I see a lot of Farm Bureau people, they call me Dr. Smiley. And it's because I enjoy what I do, but honestly, if you do some of this stuff, the energy just kind of comes out of you, and I think it's a little bit easier to have that pick-me-up during the day. So we'll see. Sometimes I get to be Dr. Krabby too, but that's not very often. It's pretty rare. My wife will tell you about that. So starting from the beginning, where does energy come from, and how do we get abundant amounts of it? That's what we want, right? We want overloads of energy. We want to be able to go through the day and then finally just have to shut it off. Are you okay on the side here?
Yeah.
Okay. Food we eat is like fuel in the body. It provides the energy we need to make all of our processes function, and I don't think anybody doesn't understand that. Obviously, what you put inside of you is what you're going to be. Dr. Hassel made me think about that a while back. He was talking about in one of his classes, and maybe some of you were here, he was talking about inflammation. And he talked about if you're going to eat that sandwich today, that sandwich is going to make up your heart cells, your liver cells, and your brain cells tomorrow and the next day. So when you put that into your mouth, think, is this what I want my brain to be made of? Is this what I want my heart to be made of? Is this what my bones are going to be made of in 3 weeks? Because that's how it works. Literally, we become what we put inside of us. So that made me think a little bit differently. I'm going to have a Pizza Hut if I put this in here, you know. So it's just a good way to think about things. So, is this high quality energy? No, obviously not. They sell a lot of them, and it's convenience and it's calories, but it's not really energy. As a matter of fact, that picture probably was taken in the 80s, and that food would probably still look the same if it was sitting out on your counter, because there's no food in it. It's just basically styrofoam, you know, so it doesn't wilt, it doesn't break down. So we get to this. Is this good? Good, you've been here. You've heard us talk about this. This is bad, okay? There's good components of it. This is good. I like this. The base is made of water. We like that. But this food pyramid is so broken, it's not even funny. It's no wonder the government doesn't have a clue, and the government is making this up based on who pays them the most. So whoever pays the most gets a bigger band at the bottom, you know, and obviously they've gone away from this triangle, but the fact that they even have, I think they're just saying, okay, we know you're going to eat some garbage, we're going to put it in here, but it doesn't even deserve a spot. We know you're going to eat it, but it doesn't deserve a spot. It's not good for us. It's not what we should be eating. Even this, way too much of this stuff, way too much. Breads, pastas, cereals, rice, all that stuff, way too much. It should go water right to this, and this should be much bigger than this. We like fruit, it's good, but veggies, raw veggies. Meat, poultry, beans, nuts, good, we like it. This should be very, very tiny, okay? We'd like to see a lot less dairy on that. So obviously now they've gone to the plate diagram. It's still not good, but you know, at least they're working with some changes. So anyway, how in the world does this become this? I hope you're laughing about the food, not the picture. I had to work really hard to get that picture like that. Okay, so this is literally what we're talking about. How do we take this and we make it this body that has lots of energy? So biochemical energy production. So this is where we're going to get into it a little bit. The cells in your body require energy in order to operate correctly and keep you alive. Actions ranging from the beating of your heart to breathing, movement of your arms and legs use energy. This consistently needs to be replenished, so this is where food comes in. We obviously have to continue to put food into our system so that we'll have energy. The main source of energy for your body comes from the foods that you eat. The body uses 3 main types of macronutrients for obtaining energy, and this is important. Proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Okay? Everybody get that? Those are the big 3 sources that they're going to use for energy, and the way that it breaks those 3 things down is different depending on what it is. Each type of macronutrient has a specific energy yield that can be obtained per gram. So with proteins and carbohydrates providing 4 calories per gram, fat providing 9 calories per gram. So a lot more calories in that fat stuff. Macronutrients need to be broken down into smaller elements before they can be absorbed into the bloodstream to be transported for energy production. That's important, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The breakdown is performed by the digestive system. So how do we get energy from our food? Keep in mind, macronutrients are bigger. Macro is bigger, micro is smaller. So we've got these big macronutrients that need to be broken down. Depending on the type of nutrient, whether it's protein, carbohydrates, or fats, whether it's a sugar or a complex sugar or something like that, it depends on how much energy your body's going to need to just break that down. So how much energy we get from our food has to do with how much energy we have to use to break it down and absorb it, okay? So if you're spending a lot of energy to get something to break down to a component that's usable, that's not really a very good turnaround, right? We want stuff that goes right in and is pretty natural and easily processed. We'll talk about that. Glycolysis, okay. So now we're going to get into some nitty-gritty. As food is digested, proteins are broken down into amino acids. You guys have heard of amino acids, right? Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. And carbohydrates are broken down into simple sugars like glucose. Okay, so that's kind of the breakdown. Now remember, amino acids, protein, amino acids are the building blocks of our cells. Okay, that's why when you eat lots of protein, you get lots of muscle, you get, you know, so when people really want to bulk up, let's say if you see a movie actor on TV and they say, oh, he did a 6-week regimen with a trainer and all he ate was protein and vegetables for 6 weeks, and all of a sudden he comes out and they're usually in pretty good shape to start with, but all of a sudden they're chiseled and they gain like 30 pounds of body mass and it's all muscle. That's why they're eating primarily lean, clean proteins and vegetables, and that's it. No carbohydrates, no fat whatsoever, no dairy whatsoever. So they're just pounding those amino acids into their body so that they can build more and more of these cells. Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. Carbohydrates are broken down into simple sugars such as glucose. So like that carbohydrate thing, that's why like you hear like when a runner is going to carb load the night or 2 nights before, they go eat a big pasta dinner. That's because pasta is pretty easily broken down into glucose, and glucose is what can fuel those muscles during an extended run or an extended workout. So that's why you see all these people, like if the night before the Hy-Vee triathlon, try to get into an Italian place. You won't get in because they're all jamming pasta down their pie hole, trying to get as much of that in their body as they can. They're carbo loading the night before so that when they get further into these endurance events, the body has something to break down into sugar. Now, that's not healthy to do on a regular basis, but if you're loading a night or two before, it's probably not so bad. Okay? So they're used for energy or as building blocks for other cells, like we talked about with amino acids. The nutrients destined for energy production are further broken down into acetyl-CoA, which is acetyl coenzyme A, with glucose needing to go through the process of glycolysis, or the catabolism of the carbohydrate, in order to produce acetyl coenzyme A or acetyl-CoA. So this is where we get into really deeper biochemistry stuff, but just hang with me and watch for the bigger picture because we'll pull some stuff out of this. In order to use the energy present in acetyl-CoA, it must be combined with oxygen through chemical reactions known as aerobic respiration. So if we go back to how sugar, glucose, remember glucose is sugar, okay? So fructose is fruit sugar, glucose is like sugar. So anything that ends in ose is sugar, okay? Sucrose, glucose, fructose, these are all sugars that we get from foods or directly. They're broken down into acetyl-CoA. Remember that. Acetyl-CoA is important. Now remember here, acetyl-CoA must be combined with oxygen through a chemical reaction known as aerobic respiration. We're going to talk about that when we get to exercise here in just a second. So this acetyl-CoA is going to drive what's called the Krebs cycle, and this is where energy production is going to start to come from, but it has to use oxygen to do it. So that's why when you work out really hard or you've been on a long walk or a long run and you start to get side aches and muscle pains and cramping and stuff, it's because your body's not keeping up with this oxygen production and you're starting to burn lactic acid instead of oxygen. Okay? So that's why we get that burning pain. Aerobic respiration is performed using the Krebs cycle, and that's what we're going to get into next, which uses oxidative metabolism to release the energy as ATP. Oxidative metabolism, so again there's that oxygen word coming up, to release the energy as ATP, as well as the electron transport chain. These reactions release the energy from acetyl-CoA, where it can then be used by the cell. So basically, what we get here is we're going to get sugar, we're going to use glycolysis, okay, and that's going to give us our acetyl-CoA, okay, and then through we're going to add oxygen, and that's what's going to start to run our Krebs cycle. Everybody still with me? Okay, so we're going to put in here a little bit of Krebs cycle, and again, I don't want to go into this in a lot of detail because this is like a year-long biochemistry stuff. So, but I just want you to understand the overview of it because we'll get into this a little more. Once energy is created in the cell, most of what is left is heat, water, and carbon dioxide. Okay, so when we work out, the heat produced by the energy reaction is used to help maintain your body's core temperature. So think about that. When you work out and you're all red and you're hot and your body's really warm and you're sweating and you've got all this energy inside of you, that's the heat that's coming off of this process. So it's just like any reaction. If you mix a bunch of chemicals together, one of the things they'll do is they'll fume up and they'll smoke and they'll do all this stuff, but a lot of them give what's called exothermic energy. They're going to release heat, okay? Because when you're breaking bonds that hold all this stuff together, it releases heat, and that's energy. The water is transported out of your body through your urine. It also is used for, making blood and those types of things. Carbon dioxide is delivered by the veins of your body to the lungs, where it escapes out the body as you exhale. So again, this is where exercise is getting really, really important in this process. If you don't exercise every single day, you're not putting in the right amount of oxygen, and you're not putting getting rid of efficient amounts of CO2. Now, you can still do those things without exercising, but they're not going to be as efficient, right? People who really exercise a lot have lower heart rates because their body's so efficient. So they always tease, like, what do they say, Lance Armstrong's resting heart rate is like 30. That means his heart beats only like once every other second. That's why that guy can go to France and dominate. Well, of course, they accuse him of doping. I don't know that that's true, but that's why he's so efficient. His body is an absolute wonder of science, because he's not a very big guy. If you've ever, has anybody ever met him, seen him in person? He comes to Iowa a lot to do like Raspberries and stuff. I got to see him in Newton once when he came to town for Raspberries, and he's not very big. He's kind of a little guy, but he's got this big chest. And it's not that he's muscular, big chest. He's got this big open chest, and he's got huge lungs, and his heart's extremely efficient. So when he gets on his bike, he's just this machine. I mean, he can pull oxygen out of the air and turn it into this Krebs cycle and burn energy and make ATP really efficiently, and his heart rate's really low. Water's transported out, carbon dioxide is delivered from the veins, by the veins to the lungs, where you get rid of it. So that's the waste products. Here we go. Here's the Krebs cycle. Does that look easy? We're not going to get into it a lot because it's very complex. But what happens here is this is that acetyl-CoA. So basically up here you got sugar, okay? And essentially it's getting broken down into acetyl coenzyme A. That mixes with oxygen, and then it goes through this cycle. Now, in order to burn this, it has to come around twice. So we go through this cycle 2 times for every time that we put a molecule in there. So, and this is happening inside the cell. So inside the little tiny cells inside your body, if you want to get into the really, really nitty-gritty, each cell has inside of it what's called mitochondria. And mitochondria are the powerhouse. That's what makes energy in your body. So when we want to know where abundant energy comes from, it comes from a cellular level. So all these processes, what you eat, what you do, exercise, oxygen, all these things come together, and those tiny little cells inside your body have mitochondria, and this Krebs cycle is happening inside that mitochondria, in each of the cells, trillions of cells inside your body, all doing this little process all the time. Body is so amazing. It's so cool. So this process comes and it spins around, and here's what I want you to see. See that right there, CO2? There's a couple of CO2, there's another one. 2 CO2 molecules that come off of there. So that's how your body's breaking this stuff down, and it's pulling carbon dioxide out of it. We're going to talk about this, so hang in there. It comes around and it makes a thing called ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. And ATP is energy. It's power, okay? So that's your gas particle, like fuel for your car. And that's how your body makes this energy. And ATP then creates this energy inside of our bodies. So this whole Krebs cycle exists, and it spins round and round and round. It's breaking down these sugars, and it's producing ATP and getting rid of carbon dioxide. Okay? So every time we come around this thing, we get ATP up here, and we're producing CO2, carbon dioxide, over here. Okay? And this is the brass ring. This is what we want, ATP. So when you're low on energy, you're not getting enough of this stuff, okay? Your body's not efficient at making it. You're not putting in the proper building blocks to make this stuff. So now we'll branch out and we'll come back around so we can see why this all happens. When it comes to energy production, you have a choice. You can supply your body with food that's easily converted into energy, or food that can be converted to energy at a cost, or food that's simply stored as fat. Okay? So you got stuff that can go in and be easily broken down, and immediately it goes into this process and starts making energy. Or you can have these complex foods that go in, and your body's got to work at breaking it down, breaking it down, so that it can finally put it into this process, but that takes a lot of energy. Or food that it just looks at and goes, no, not going to happen. We're just going to tuck that stuff away. We're going to talk about one of those here in a minute. Remember the lesson we learned with high fructose corn syrup? Was anybody here when we talked about high fructose corn syrup? Dr. Hassel talked about it a little bit. I talked about it just a little bit during my ADHD thing. High fructose corn syrup is what most of us are getting in a lot of the foods that we eat now. Go buy a bottle of ketchup or a bottle of soda or almost anything. I mean, cereal, granola bars. I mean, things that you think would be relatively good for you are full of high fructose corn syrup. And basically it's because corn, at least up to this point, has been very cheap, and it's a great way to make this sugar. Well, the corn growers are saying it's really good for you. It's just like regular cane sugar. It's not good for you, and it's not like cane sugar. Your body dissolves sugar differently than high fructose corn syrup. Don't let them fool you. Because the ads that they're putting on TV right now, it's just like sugar. Your body, and they have a doctor.
Your body can't tell.
Your body can't tell. Yep.
Yeah.
See, that's advertising. And they're selling this stuff, okay? It's not good for you, and your body doesn't break it down like sugar. It doesn't go through this process like regular sugar does. Instead, your body sees high fructose corn syrup and it goes, not going to handle that, and it just tucks it away into a fat cell somewhere, because that's where it's safe. So if your body has something inside of you that it doesn't like, it doesn't want, it tucks it away in these little fat cells, because that's a safe place to keep it, because it's safe inside those little cells. So a lot of people wonder why they can't lose weight. This may be one of the primary reasons they're getting too much of that stuff, and your body wants to hold on to those fat cells because it's storing this poison inside of you. And a lot of times when you go through a cleanse and you lose a bunch of weight and you feel like crap, it's because all this toxin is coming out of your system. And people are like, gosh, I've been eating so healthy and I'm losing all this weight and I feel like trash all the time. It's because your internal system is toxic. It's just gross. And until you get rid of all that stuff, you feel pretty lousy. So that's a big deal. High fructose corn syrup comprises a group of corn syrups that have undergone enzymatic processing to convert some of the glucose into fructose. That's the problem, okay? So fructose is fruit sugar, okay? Now, fruit sugar from grapes and apples and bananas and oranges and stuff like that is okay. It's still fructose, but it's packed into this high fiber thing called fruit. And fiber slows digestion and allows you to absorb that fructose more efficiently. When you put it in a soda bottle and you guzzle it down 32 ounces at a time, your body doesn't have any fiber with that, and it just hits your system like a ton of bricks, and that's when it just stores it away. So when we're getting it in fruit, it's not as bad. So they put it in there, though, because it's sweeter than sugar. High fructose corn syrup is actually sweeter than sugar. Given the choice, most people like high fructose corn syrup better than sugar because it's sweeter. We like sweet. In the United States, consumer foods and products typically have high fructose corn syrup as a sweetener. It's become very common in processed foods and beverages in the U.S., including bread, cereals, breakfast bars, lunch meats, yogurt, soup, condiments. So all these little things that you're eating have high fructose corn syrup in it. It's almost impossible not to get it, so we just have to watch out for it. Some say that it's safe, however the way the body responds is different. We just talked about that to the natural sucrose or fructose. High fructose corn syrup is difficult to digest. Finally, natural fructose in fruits, yeah, it's high fiber. Drinking or eating straight modified HFCS puts sugars directly into the bloodstream. It's in a lot of foods, so we just kind of covered that. So what can I eat, right? So I always hate this, because when you talk about stuff and you go, well, don't eat this, and don't eat that, and don't eat this, and don't eat that. Well, what we have to eat, right? And obviously, we can't all just grow our own food. We mostly get it from the market, and a lot of it's processed and stuff. But what can we eat, and what can we eat to give us the most energy? So here's where you're going to get your bang for your buck for the food, okay? If you're looking for nutrient-dense foods to help you power through your day, stick with nature. Remember to ask if what you are eating knows what it started out as. Sorry about that. If you're eating a lettuce salad, you can look at lettuce and say, I bet this came out of the ground looking like this. This is lettuce. This is the way nature intended it. This is the way God made it. This is natural. This is a normal food. Same thing with a fruit that grew on a tree or whatever. If you look at a Dorito, do you think that a Dorito knows that it started out as corn? Does it look like corn? No. Does it orange? No. Is it neon orange? And I'm not here to harp on people for eating certain things. Just understand that in moderation, maybe a little bit of that stuff your body can tolerate, but when we eat large quantities of it, if your body doesn't know what it is, it can't break it down. And your body knows what natural food is. It's been engineered over many, many, many years to recognize these things. It's used to them. Our ancestors way back when ate lettuce and they ate fruit and they ate meat and they ate stuff like that, but they didn't eat Doritos. So less processing leads to better nutrient-dense food that requires less energy to digest and sustain your energy levels. So sometimes people will eat like a processed food source just because it's high in sugar and it'll give them a little energy, but in the end they're going to lose energy because it costs them so much to digest that and try to process it. So, what can I eat? Here's where we'll give you some food examples, okay? Almonds are, like mini nuts, are one of the best plant sources for protein. And everywhere I looked, almonds were at the top of the list. So if you want a quick pick-me-up snack at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, leave the caffeine alone, leave the candy bar alone, have a bag of almonds in your desk. Unsalted is probably better, but if you have to have a little bit of salt, maybe get some sea salt on it or whatever. These things are awesome, and a lot of us eat almonds throughout the day. They're great, and hopefully you like the taste of them. I know I do. They're great. So protein, and they have protein in them, and that's what helps to fuel you throughout the day, so it's not just a sugar boost. Protein helps regulate your blood sugar and keep your energy levels stable throughout the day. They're good for your heart because they contain monounsaturated fat, which helps lower blood cholesterol levels. In addition to protein, almonds contain fiber, riboflavin, magnesium, iron, calcium. These are good stuff. I mean, these are amazing foods. The USDA states that almonds have more calcium than any other nut. So ladies, if you're looking for some calcium and don't want to drink a lot of milk or ice cream, here's a way you can get some calcium. You can also get it in green vegetables like kale and broccoli and spinach and things like that too. That's something that the Milk Council has done over the years. They've convinced Americans that the only way you can get calcium is from milk, and that is so untrue. You can get such better sources of calcium from green leafy vegetables and things like almond. And you don't have to drink like almond milk either. You can just eat almonds. One serving, 23 almonds, provides half of your body's recommended daily allowance of vitamin E. So that's also good. Apples. Fiber helps satisfy your appetite, makes you feel more full. Gives you a quick energy supply by making you feel full. Contains pectin, a soluble fiber, lowers blood cholesterol, glucose levels. Antioxidants like vitamin C, we'll talk about this in a second. Vitamin E and vitamin C. Do you all know what antioxidants are, what they do? So those are the things that help repair cell tissues. So like if cancer is in there and cells are mutating and destroying each other, and you get good antioxidants in there that can help repair some of that damage in there. And we can help prevent some of those things. Fresh apples are an excellent source of vitamin C. I know everybody thinks oranges, but there's other stuff too, and oranges are great too, but apples are great. They help form the connective tissue collagens, which keeps your capillaries and blood vessels healthy, aids in the absorption of iron. Anybody know what iron does in the body? Iron helps make what's called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin carries oxygen. Okay? So if you're anemic, the reason people are so dang tired when they're anemic is because they don't have enough iron in their system, which makes the hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen. And remember, we need oxygen to support ATP production. So if you're not getting this iron in the system, you're not going to get this ATP production, which is going to leave you energy deficient. Okay? So we need oxygen and we need ATP. Iron helps us get that. Okay, so if you talk to people who are anemic, they just really feel weak and sluggish and things like that. Beans are a great source of iron, by the way. The other thing, Dr. Hassel was just saying to a patient, I overheard him, in the old days they used to fry a lot of stuff on cast iron skillets, and the iron would flake off into the food, and we would eat iron that way. And now there's a lot more anemia because a lot of new skillets are aluminum or steel, stainless steel, and they don't break apart. So the old cast iron skillets were actually pretty good for us. You know, it was just a little way to get some iron.
I read a while back that apples were one of the worst product as far as having toxins and things in it.
Yeah. And anything that doesn't have a peel that you get rid of,
right.
Like bananas are pretty safe because you're taking that peel off, but you have to watch the things like bananas or apples and grapes and those types of fruits where they're not protected or encased if they're using a lot of pesticides and things like that. So yeah, if you can get organic, obviously that's a good way to avoid that. But then it's not the fruit that's bad, it's the chemicals that they spray on them, but you're right. So we want to wash those things really well. But the bad part is a lot of those things seep in through the pore, you know, through the skin. So organic is a great way to avoid some of those things. Or if you have your own or a neighbor, if you can get them to not spray and you can get natural apples. I used to, when I lived in Pella, there was a family that had a small orchard, and they didn't spray any of them, and their apples were fantastic. They were so good. Yeah, good point, Lowell. Blueberries. Blueberries are really they've been kind of a buzz fruit for the last couple of years. You even see like energy drinks now that have blueberry in them and stuff like that. Blueberries have been shown to improve short-term memory and promote healthy aging. Blueberries are a low-calorie source of fiber and vitamin C. According to the USDA, just 1 cup of fresh blueberries has 84 calories, 3.6 grams of fiber, and 14 milligrams of vitamin C. What does fiber do? It's what we talked about just a second ago. Fiber helps to slow down that digestive process and helps us to absorb things. It also makes us feel full. It also helps to cleanse the colon, right? So a higher fiber diet is good for GI health. High fiber diets are actually shown to remarkably reduce the incidence of colon cancer as well. So while you're getting this extra energy from some of these foods, we can be fighting cancer, we can be improving our systems too, because a backed up system is not good for energy production either, right? When that system gets backed up and we don't have regular bowel movements, you're not going to absorb the nutrients through your colon like you're supposed to, and that's where a lot of water gets absorbed, is in the large intestine. So once everything goes through the small intestine and goes through the large intestine, that's where a lot of water gets absorbed into our bloodstream, is in that large colon. And if it's all backed up because we're not cleansing stuff out, that can be an inefficient thing. So that can lead to dehydration as well. Broccoli, a great source of antioxidants, vitamins A and C to protect your cells from damage. It's a good source of calcium, potassium, folate, and fiber. All of these will leave you with energy and a strong immune system. What is an antioxidant? You guys have heard that term, right? An antioxidant. I'll try to kind of read through this a little bit because it's a pretty good explanation. As the name implies, antioxidants are substances that are capable of counteracting the damaging but normal effects of the physiological process of oxidation in animal tissue. Antioxidants are nutrients as well as enzymes or proteins in your body that assist the chemical reactions. Oxidative stress occurs when the production of harmful molecules called free radicals is beyond the protective capability of antioxidant defense. Free radicals are chemically active atoms or molecular fragments that have a charge due to an excess or deficient number of electrons. So you've heard of free radicals, right? So basically what happens is all these processes are going on and they're stealing electrons from different particles inside there, and they're looking for something. So they're scavenging through your body these free radicals, and they want to grab stuff out of other nutrients. They want to grab those electrons. So they want to steal from stuff. So it's important that we put foods into our body that are natural antioxidants. They seek out these free radicals and they donate their electrons to them. And so those free radicals, if we get too many of those, it causes this oxidation effect inside your body, which depletes you of oxygen, and you don't get that ATP process. So that's going to rob your energy, but it also causes things like cancer. Okay? Because they have one or more unpaired electrons, free radicals are highly unstable. They scavenge your body and grab or donate electrons. They damage the cells, proteins, and DNA. The same oxidative process also causes oils to become rancid, peeled apples to turn brown, and iron to rust. Okay? So if you bite into an apple and set it down and it turns all brown, it's because that's what happens. That oxidation process is happening in that fruit. If we put food in our bodies that have extra electrons, then they will seek out these free radicals and donate willingly their electrons. If we don't, those free radicals will go through your body and they'll take them for wherever they can get them. So they'll steal them out of your bodies, out of your cells. Okay? And that's why we want to counteract this stuff. And that's going to hurt your energy process, because remember, these cells have the mitochondria inside of them. And this is where all this power system is happening inside of here. So if that cell is damaged, the mitochondria are not efficient, which is going to lead to all problems in this Krebs cycle. So if that cell isn't efficient and working the way that it should, you're going to lose energy. Okay? Everybody still with me? Good? Okay. Red beans. Small and dark red beans are low in fat, high in protein and fiber, which leaves you feeling full and energized. A good source of iron. There we go. Magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, copper, and thiamine. Red beans also contain phytonutrients. So what's a phytonutrient? When we do these talks, we sometimes use buzzwords, and I want to make sure we're defining them. A phytonutrient is a plant nutrient essential for helping repair cellular damage and cancers. It's found in fruits, nuts, and beans. So again, this is all part of this process. By protecting our bodies and keeping them from getting damaged, we get more energy out of this Krebs cycle. Okay? So that's why these things are so important. Salmon. Everybody like salmon? Anybody not like salmon? Don't like it? Some people do, some people just can't tolerate the taste of fish. But salmon is low in saturated fat and cholesterol. It's a good source of protein. Most importantly, though, salmon is an excellent source of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s are a type of fat that makes your blood less likely to form clots, protects against irregular heartbeats, decreases triglyceride levels, decreases growth of artery clogging plaques, lowers blood pressure, reduces the risk of stroke. Anybody who was here for Inflammation Nation from Dr. Hassel, you heard a lot about omega-3s. Omega-3 fatty acids reduce inflammation. Is that important when you have pain? Absolutely. I just got a research article probably a month or 6 weeks ago where they were talking about adding omega-3 fatty acids to the American diet, and this doctor hypothesized that 60 to 70% of chronic pain could be eliminated if we had enough omega-3s in our bodies. So simply eating things like salmon, and if you can't eat the fish or can't get it or don't like it or don't want to do it often enough, take a supplement, a good quality marine lipid supplement of omega-3. That's probably the one thing we're harping on people for the most lately, is get these omega-3s in your system. If you're not, get started. Because those omega-3s will reduce inflammation. So here's the question I have. How does an acidic diet affect fatigue? So if we're eating Big Macs and fries and garbage food and it's going into our body, it's going to raise the acidity level in our body and it's going to make that whole thing inefficient. We have inflammation, we have cellular damage, we have all these problems, and again, it robs energy out of our system. So something as simple as omega-3 or salmon or getting, avocados if you like them, that's a great source of omega-3, but so are nuts. So again, back to the almonds, you're getting those nice omega-3s. Flaxseed is easy to sprinkle on things, you might not even know it's there. You don't have to necessarily just get it from salmon, but it's a good source. So if you're acidic, and you might say, well, how do I know if I'm acidic? We can help you with that. We have little pH strips up there. You pee on it first thing in the morning, you hold it up to a color wheel, it tells you whether you're acidic or alkaline or basic or what's going on. And if you're acidic, we can help you with that stuff, okay? And a lot of it's just dietary changes. You can do a cleanse to get a quick kickstart and get some stuff going. That's a great way to do it, but we can make slow changes over time that can also achieve a more alkaline diet. Good? Sweet potatoes. Everybody like sweet potatoes? With only 54 calories and one small sweet potato, this delicious food is fat-free and low in calories. In addition, the deep orange yellow color of sweet potatoes means they're high in antioxidants, beta-carotene. Okay, we've heard about that. Usually we hear about that in carrots, but these things are really loaded with it. Food sources in beta-carotene, which are converted to vitamin A, in your body may help slow the aging process and reduce the risk of some cancer. Sweet potatoes are also good sources of fiber, vitamins B6, C, E, folate, potassium. Vitamin A is called retinol. Okay, so you've heard that word too, retinol, that's vitamin A. Well, they always say carrots are good for your eyes, your retinas in your eyes. Retinol, that's what vitamin A does. It protects your eyes, it protects all of those processes. So these are good things to eat. Fortunately, a lot of times now if I go out to eat, I'm seeing sweet potatoes on the menu now. Baked sweet potatoes, which is really good because baked white potatoes are essentially nutrient-free. They're fillers, but they're just a starch. And so seeing sweet potatoes on there is great options for people when you go out to eat. If you see sweet potato, choose it. And if you like them, I happen to actually like them better than regular potatoes, especially if they're just plain. They've got a little bit sweeter, more of a natural flavor to them. I like them. But I'm even seeing like sweet potato fries, sweet potato nuggets. I'm seeing all these different things, and clearly when you deep fry them, that kind of beats a little bit of the purpose, but baked and natural is a great way. Raspberries, they're high in fiber. This is important because fiber moves quickly and relatively easily through your digestive tract, helps it function process properly. 1 cup of raspberries provides 8 grams of fiber and 64 calories. Is fiber good or bad for the digestive process? We already covered that, right? It's good. An efficient digestive tract will help with energy absorption and waste excretion. I actually saw, raspberries are one of the most high fiber fruits. So if you're struggling with fiber, a lot of times people think that they have to eat this grindage, like you got to eat these like wheat, whatever, and get these harsh foods to get fiber. There's raspberries. That's a pretty easy way to get some fiber. If you don't like apples, some people are not apple eaters. Raspberries are even higher in fiber, so that's per ounce, so it's pretty good. Any questions about some of those foods and how they create energy? Are we on track yet? Okay. So it's all about this Krebs cycle. So like Dr. Hassel said, think about that food becoming your tissues in your body, but I also want you to think when I eat something, is it going to drive the Krebs cycle or is it going to steal from the Krebs cycle? Is this going to take more energy from my body or is it going to add more energy? So some of those foods that we talked about, if you take only a few things away from here, if you pack your snacks differently, how many of you eat 3 meals a day? Everybody eat at least 3 meals? Do you eat 4, 5, 6 meals a day, 7 meals a day? Recommended now that we eat 6 meals a day, right? And we're not talking about sitting at a table eating a meal every 6th time, but if you start with your breakfast, and make sure you get some protein in your breakfast, right? A lot of breakfasts are void of protein. They're high in carbohydrates and sugars, and that's why we get that crash mid-morning, because even if you eat like milk, it has a little bit of protein in it, but it has lactose, which is sugar, which is why a lot of people peter out at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, because all they've had in the morning, Dr. Hassel was talking about, kids run out the door with a Pop-Tart and a glass of orange juice. Well, what they got was sugar and sugar. And orange juice isn't terrible, but it's pretty sugary. And they're not getting all that fiber from the pulp in the orange that you would normally eat. So they crash, throughout school because all they've had to eat was sugar. So a little bit of protein goes a long way in the morning. So eggs are a great way to get it. A little bit of meat if you like some lean, clean protein first thing in the morning. Anything with some protein is a good start. And then throughout the day, you want to eat breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, a mid-afternoon snack, dinner, and an evening snack. That's how you get your 6 meals. And the snacks can be a handful of almonds and something to drink, some water or a piece of fruit or whatever. So I mean, it doesn't have to be hard, but if you start packing your day a little, if you think about when you go to the grocery store, not just I need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I need 6 meals throughout this day. And if you're eating constantly throughout the day, those 6 times, your body can process that much more efficiently, and rather than getting this slug of calories all at once, and then we drop into this void and this rhythm and we get sluggish, just feeding it all day long is a much better way to go. Most of us, if you see our cabinets with our computers in, that top drawer usually has food in it because we all eat during the day. Whether it be a nutrient bar of some kind or a bag of almonds or whatever, fruit, we usually have that kind of stuff. And I usually do like my fresh fruits and stuff more in the morning, and then in the afternoon I'll get into the almonds or get into the nuts or stuff like that. But it's just whatever you like. Any questions about food so far? Cardiovascular system. This is important stuff because the heart and lungs tie into this thing, okay? So when we talk about energy, you have to have a healthy heart and lungs in order for this to happen. So obviously, smoking is not a very good idea, right? Nutrients play one part in the energy creation process. The body must also have oxygen in order to create the chemical reactions needed to break energy free of the nutrients and into a form that can be used by the cells. Your body relies on the heart and lungs for this to occur. So that's how we get energy, oxygen into our system, right? If you've got a healthy functioning heart and healthy functioning lungs, that's how we get oxygen into the system. Does everybody exercise every single day? Try to? Yeah, it's good. Exercise every day makes these things strong and it makes them efficient. Just like Lance Armstrong, he's very efficient, but he's a little bit genetically gifted, but most of that he developed himself because he's been an athlete his entire life and a high endurance athlete. Now, he may have some cardiomegaly when he gets older because his heart's so strong and efficient. He may have some heart issues as he gets really old. A lot of high endurance athletes do, just because their heart is so big, and you don't want to have a super huge heart, and a lot of them do. But it's just one of those give and take things. But you want an efficient system, so you want your heart rate to be low and efficient. You want it to pump and be able to send that blood efficiently through the body, and you want those lungs exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide very efficiently. Exercise is the best way to make that happen, okay? You'll often see during the day, like if you're a little sluggish or a little tired, you sigh, you yawn. Your body's trying to force more oxygen in that system. It's trying to expel that carbon dioxide and get some oxygen in. So if you find that you're yawning or that you're a little sluggish or you're sighing or kind of getting that during the day, get up and move. That's what your body's saying. Hey, I need faster transportation of this oxygen. I need to get some blood to these cells because they're getting fatigued. They're not allowing this process to happen. So the cardiovascular system is pretty important. An efficient respiratory system is critical for oxygen transportation to the cells as well as excretion of carbon dioxide. Remember where we saw CO2 in the Krebs cycle? Right over here. So early on in that process, as it's coming down and all these things are breaking down and being added, and there's all these steps in here. But the CO2 comes out pretty early. Now the lungs then, or the heart, pumps that blood through those cells, and the cells give up that CO2. They don't want it in there. It's a byproduct. So we don't need CO2 in our system. So the cells release that CO2 into the blood. The blood is pumped back up to the lungs, where the lungs exchange CO2 for oxygen. Okay? Then we breathe out that CO2. So that's why they say, like, if you're hyperventilating, just breathe in a bag for a little bit, because you'll get enough CO2 back in there, it'll drop your oxygen content. That's what's happening. If people get too excited and they hyperventilate, it's just too much oxygen going into the system and the body can't handle it. You need to have a little CO2 in there. Okay? So smoking, exercise. Here's something, pursed lip breathing. Do people know what that is? That's where you breathe in and then breathe out like this. By doing that, it holds your lungs open, it holds all the alveoli open a little bit longer, and it creates more efficient exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So you'll see it naturally in people with COPD, old smokers. A lot of times, number one, they wear out their elbows because they're resting on something, because they're hunched over and they're trying to hold their lungs open. So you see this on old smokers. They'll lean forward a lot, and their elbows are always like raw, and they wear out the jacket's sleeves. So they sit like this and they go, because their body knows it needs to try to hold those lungs open as long as possible, because they're so damaged, they're trying to be as efficient as they possibly can. But you can see this in high efficiency athletes too. You know, if you're trying to, like, let's say you wanted to go underwater a really long time, what would you do? You go, you really get that oxygen in, and then you go. And you'll see that in a lot of people. Like, if you're trying to build good lung structure, one of the things that you can do is every hour just sit back, take a couple of deep breaths, and I guarantee the first time you do that, you'll get lightheaded. You know, most people do, because all of a sudden your body's got this rich oxygen supply, and that'll pump your energy level up. So again, if you get those sighs or those yawns during the day, it's great to get up and get moving, and while you're doing that, take a couple deep breaths and just breathe out slowly. Okay? It'll force more oxygen into your system and pull that CO2 out. This is the byproduct. We have to get rid of it. We need oxygen to come in during that glycolysis process so that we can build more ATP. So if you're getting a little bit run down and tired, get up, move around a little bit, take a couple deep breaths, pursed lip breathe, your energy level will come right back up. Okay? Nervous system. Woohoo! Alright, chiropractors love the nervous system. The master control system. The nervous system is the energy system of the body. It's the electrical system of the body. In order for action potentials to be reached in a muscle or organ, the impulse must be carried on the nerve system that is free of interference. Okay? So this cord is carrying energy from the computer to here, right? What happens if I clip it? It stops, right? What happens if I bend it and kink it and put pressure on it? Can I slow down that information process? Yes. What if I put a dimmer on the light switch and turn them down? These are all analogies, and this is what happens when your nervous system is not functioning well. So there's our dimmer, right? So all we did is we just shut down some of the power going through that system. The same thing happens in your nervous system. So if your spine is misaligned and it's not functioning efficiently and it puts pressure on your nerves can't communicate effectively with the body, and I'll show you why that robs you of energy. But first we'll talk about how to feed the nervous system, okay? Vitamin A. Retinol is required for normal development of the central nervous system and is essential for our healthy vision. In 1998, researchers at the Salk, everybody know Jonas Salk Institute for Biological Studies found that vitamin A also promotes higher learning and enhances short-term memory. So this is big for people that are reaching older ages. Dementia can be an issue. Get them on some vitamin A. Get them into foods that have high vitamin A. They discovered that vitamin A directly affects brain cells or neurons in the hippocampus, an area of the brain associated with learning and memory. This is also important for children because they're learning. Their body needs to be able to retain information, so they need that vitamin A and they need foods that have it in so that they have a healthy nervous system. Beta-carotene, which is found in orange fleshy vegetables, is converted to retinol within the body. So if we want lots of vitamin A, sweet potatoes. Okay, carrots are great, but sweet potatoes have a ton of it. Okay, eat them; they're good. Folic acid. Most people hear of folic acid with pregnant women, right? Does that spark interest with you? Women now who are pregnant are pretty much going to be on folic acid or folic acid supplementation because it helps prevent neural tube defects or spina bifida. Okay. So spina bifida is where the neural tube didn't close. It needs to be closed, and that's the central nervous system of your spinal cord. And what happens is that back end of the neural tube stays open, and then the meninges, or the brain tissue, or the nerve tissue, bulges out of that neural tube. And that's why these kids wind up having mental defects and problems, is because they didn't have enough folic acid to help develop that central nervous system and get that neural tube to close. It's a short window, and it's early in pregnancy. So we always tell people, if you're even thinking about getting pregnant, get on folic acid ahead of time. Make sure you're eating foods that are high in folic acid. But it also helps to promote a normal healthy nervous system. So folic acid supplementation in pregnancy significantly reduces the risk of neural tube defects, such as spina bifida. Specifically, folic acid is needed to synthesize and repair DNA. That's important, right? Because what causes cancer? What causes cancer is when you have one cell that needs to replicate and become another cell, or become two cells. And when that happens, that DNA in there, there's my spiral ladder for my DNA, okay? Well, that DNA has to tell the cell how to do that. If your DNA is broken or it's not correct, you're not going to get good replication, and that's cancer. So we all have cancer right now, right? You all know that? I have cancer, you have cancer, I guarantee we all have it, because we all have cells that are oxidated, they're broken, the mitochondria aren't working correctly, and they're not correct. They're not replicating correctly. The good news is that immune system goes in and it recognizes these mutated cells and it destroys them. And that's how we beat cancer all the time. So we always have cancer all the time, but when it's left unchecked, that's when these cells start to accumulate and grow, and they start to become more than what the immune system can handle, and then we get cancer. Okay? So folic acid is important for all of us. It removes homocysteine from the bloodstream, which reduces the risk of atherosclerosis and stroke as well. So we want to eat foods that are high in folic acid. Vitamin B12 has an essential role in maintaining certain functions of the central nervous system. By the way, it's 7 o'clock. If anybody needs to go, I won't be offended, but I'll try to wrap this up. So things like cognition, short-term memory. B12 is needed for the production of myelin. This is what I want to talk about. Has anybody ever heard of myelin before? Okay, when you have a nerve, we're going to look at a nerve coming down through the body. If we turn this on its end here and we look at it straight on, this is the nerve, this is myelin.
That's
okay?
the sheath that protects it.
You got it. So it's the plastic around the electrical cord. Okay, so you got the wire inside, that's transmitting the energy, but the plastic around the outside is the insulation, and that's what makes this thing work. So myelin is huge. It's very important. Vitamin E is important for preventing the onset of age-related dementia such as Alzheimer's by reducing oxidative stress in the brain. Did I move ahead? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, back to B12. Sorry, I jumped ahead. So myelin is like the insulation in the wire of the nerve system. It has to be, we're going to get into this just a second, but it has to be well insulated in order for it to communicate. And what we know about myelin is the thicker it is, the faster the information travels. So the better your myelin is, the faster the communication system is. And I have a little slide that comes up here in just a second that talks about the speed of neurons. But one of the things that we talk about in chiropractic all the time is if you've got a nerve that's coming out of your central nervous system in your spine and it's pinched, one of the things that it does is it compresses the nerve and it causes an acidic reaction or inflammation around there, and that inflammation eats away this myelin. And so one of the things that can happen by taking pressure off of a nerve is it allows that myelin sheath to heal and function better. Demyelinating diseases like multiple sclerosis, where you lose that myelin, it eats it away. That's why these people can't walk and they wind up uncoordinated and they have muscle control problems, is because that myelin all getting eaten. Okay?
But how do you know that you have good myelin in your body? I mean, the only way you're going to tell is get in there and...
Yeah. That's it. But if you're seeing symptoms, like if you're feeling like your body is sluggish, or if it's not, if you're losing energy, or if you're losing coordination, or you're shaking, or those types of things, those can be symptoms, but everything else has to be proactive. You just have to be proactive with it. So we need to eat things that have high vitamin B12. We need to protect our nervous system. Antioxidants are important. Chiropractic is important. Exercise is important. So these are all things that, you're right, you may not know until it's too late. You know, so when people come in and they go, well, my arm is numb and I've got this burning pain. Well, guess what? The reason it's numb, well, it burns first oftentimes, And that burning is that chemical reaction on that myelin sheath. That's what your body's feeling. And then if it goes numb, you've got enough compression on here that you've shut the power off completely. So those are some of the symptoms that people will come in with. And sometimes they'll say, well, it's just a numb arm. Well, guess what? Those nerves also go to your heart and your lungs. Is that important? What if your heart was numb? You know, it's very important. And sometimes I think people discredit that that's not a big deal to have numb fingers. Well, it's a very big deal because it could be an indication of a nerve compression, but it could also be an indication of demyelination. So when we adjust people, we're looking for that numbness to go away, and if it doesn't, then we have to think about demyelinating diseases. Fortunately, the vast majority of times we take the pressure off and the nerve system heals, and we don't need to look into that stuff. But if it doesn't, we need to investigate things like MS and issues like that. Vitamin E is important for preventing the onset of age-related dementia, such as Alzheimer's. It's a powerful antioxidant. It eliminates free radicals. We talked about those. So vitamin E is very important for that. I thought this was cool. A Dutch study published in 2010 edition of the Archives of Neurology discovered that eating vitamin E-rich foods delayed the onset of age-related dementia in 2/3 of the people studied. That's so significant. Why don't we see that on the news? You know, why isn't Brian Williams having an entire rock center devoted just to, hey people, you know, we're having people walking around with purple ribbons and memory walks and all this stuff. Why aren't we learning this on TV? This is important. I'll tell you why not. It's because it costs more to treat it than it does to prevent it, and that's where money comes. And I hate to be that guy who says that, because I'm not really a big conspiracy theorist, but it's true. If we would go out and eat these foods that are high in these vitamins, we could prevent a lot of these diseases and we wouldn't need medication, but that's not very productive. And so, you guys know it. Chiropractic care. Remember, you can eat all the right things, exercise daily, get plenty of sleep, and still have dramatically diminished nerve function and performance if you suffer from vertebral subluxation. So, simple misalignment in the spine, putting pressure on your nerves at any level, causes dysfunction. Can't stress enough how important it is for energy transfer to have a properly functioning nerve system. Here's what I want to talk about. This action potential. This is a nerve, and this is the axon here. These are called dendrites. The dendrites receive information. The nerve processes that information, and it sends it down the axon to the next set of dendrites. This is how your body communicates in the nerve system, okay? If you have, this is what I want to talk about. The myelin sheath that goes around that axon, around that nerve, the thinnest axons, so they don't have a lot of myelin sheaths, they can send a action potential about 1 meter per second. Okay, so a meter is about 3 feet. It takes about a second. That's not very fast as far as nerve system goes, but keep in mind that these things are microns short. Okay, so that's pretty fast. But thick axons, so if the axon's just thicker, then it can go 10 meters per second. So now we're talking about some speed, but look at this. Put a little myelin sheath around that, and it goes 100 meters per second. So that myelin sheath is so critical. Without it, it slows the process of that information. So coordination, all that kind of stuff. One of the things I love right now, and if you don't know, I have a little baby girl. She's 5.5 months old. She's just now developing the myelin sheath in her body. So her body is starting to develop myelin right now. And the really cool thing that's happening is pretty soon she's going to start to crawl and then she's going to start to walk. And she can't do it right now because her body can't be coordinated enough because she doesn't have myelin sheaths yet. She's developing myelin. So what's happening is when she gets up on her hands and knees pretty soon and she starts to rock back and forth, her body's starting to communicate and she's starting to get some of the signals through. And once that myelin sheath starts to form more fully, she'll start to take off. So my old neurology professor at Palmer, he used to say when that kid gets up and they start rocking, you should be like, go myelin, go, come on, build that myelin. Because that's what they're trying to develop, that coordination, but their nerve system isn't firing as efficiently as it should yet. It's not quite fast enough. And once they start to get that, then that coordination and that muscle control and that movement starts to come up, and then they start to get up and go. So even in young children, you'll see this gangly, uncoordinated thing going on. It's just because it takes too long for information to get down there. They haven't fully developed all this myelin sheathing, and as they get a little older and that thing develops, then they start to take off, and all of a sudden they're smooth. So if that myelin is damaged or has pressure in it, obviously we have problems. This talks about how information is propagated through a nerve cell, and basically it's sodium and potassium. So a lot of times people say, oh, you know, if you're having energy issues, eat a banana, they're high in potassium. There's some truth to that, because sodium has to come in, and then it has to excite the inside of the cell, and then that excitement jumps to the next node, to the next node, to the next node, and that's how that information travels down that nerve, okay? So we have to have the proper amount of nutrients, but we also have to have an alkaline body, because if we have too much acid in our system, it destroys that process. Exercise. How does exercise unlock energy from my body? Obviously we need oxygen, we need to get rid of CO2, so that's the biggest thing. But it also helps the muscles to fire, it helps to dedicate protein into the muscles and keep them strong. If we don't use our muscles, they waste away because your body will recognize it as a source of protein. So when it needs protein, it will eat your muscles. So we need to eat protein and we need to strengthen the muscles to help keep the muscles strong. That's why when you don't use your arm, like say you break your arm, and 6 weeks later you take the cast off and it's just this shrunken little shriveled thing with no muscle, it's because those muscles weren't working. They weren't getting the protein that they needed, and so they break down. If exercise uses energy, how can exercise increase my energy level? One of the things people say to me all the time is, I don't have the energy to go out and walk. Are you kidding? Walk 20 minutes? I don't have I get home from work and I'm tired. Well, number one, we got to get feeding the body a little bit different first, okay? So we got to get some protein in there. We've got to get some good energy going inside the system. But if you can fight through that initial slug of, my God, I'm so tired when I get home from work, and you start walking, you'll find that that walk will actually energize you. Dr. Hassel set up this office that we have a 2-hour lunch. The reason for it is we go work out. So we come to work in the morning, we've slept all night, we're feeling pretty good, we've had our protein for breakfast, and we work the first 4 or 5 hours of the day, and then we leave here and we go run, we exercise, we lift weights, we do whatever, and that helps boost that energy, and then when we feed the body, it takes all that energy back in, and we have this efficient system to get us through to the end of the day. So that's why we exercise midday. That doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise early in the morning or late at night. Obviously you have to do it when you can do it. That's what works for us, and that's the way we set it up. Oh, sleep. Sleep is so good. And one of the things that you have to understand is how your body works. There's what's called a circadian rhythm. So your temperature goes up and down throughout the day. Your body temperature does. And if you recognize that and you work with it, you can get more efficient energy out of your body. How many people nap during the day? Anybody? I raise my hand. I do. Anybody else? Yeah. And I wish more corporate places and more work centers were set up for people to take a quick nap. And it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 10 or 15 minutes. I try to sneak in at least 15 minutes every day. So usually the first part of my lunch is I'll see my last patient, shut the lights off, lay down on the table, and I'll take about a 10 or 15 minute nap. Then I get up, I go do my exercise, eat, and then come back. I like to do that just because understanding that at that time of the day, that's when your body temperature is starting to rise. That's why after you eat that big Thanksgiving dinner, you know, everybody thinks it's all the tryptophan from the turkey, and partly it is, but partly you've eaten all this food and your body temperature comes up and it has to dissolve all this food. So that's why we get that after lunch sluggishness. So eating a lighter lunch can help with that, but exercise can help with that too, because you've got this high metabolism going on and it'll more efficiently digest your lunch. So, but taking a little nap is okay, because when your body has that temperature rise, shutting that system down and letting it do its thing for 10 or 15 minutes can totally re-energize you in a day. I started taking naps during the day probably about 10 or 12 years ago, and I do it almost every single day. I just make time for it. It's important to me. I'll have days like if I leave here and I go do something else, I have to really fight through that 1 o'clock time, because usually about 12:45, 12:50, I'm taking a 10 or 15 minute nap. I can tell what time of day it is without my watch, because if I hit about 12:30, 12:45, I get really, really sleepy. My body likes that little nap. Usually if I make it through then to about 1:05, 1:10, 1:15, I start to come back around again. But don't ask me questions at 12:50, because you probably won't get a very good answer. I'm a little sleepy usually.
I find that if I lay down to take a nap, I'm done for the rest of the day.
Oh,
I am so dragging that I'm useless.
Okay.
So I have to stay away from a nap.
And that may change as other things change. So as your metabolism changes and as your food changes and you recognize how these things work, if you make a few of those subtle changes, I think your body will be able to take that little nap and energize you, rather than, because your body's probably in a repair phase at that point. You're probably sleep deprived and you're probably oxidative and probably a little acidic. So your body's going to use every chance it can to just shut everything off. But I think if we make some of these changes in there, you'll see that a 15-minute nap will actually wake you up. You'll actually feel a lot more energized. But your body's probably just saying you're probably pretty sleep deprived and stressed and all those things. And there are times where it is like that. So we have a lot of people talk about that. But if you can, part of that too is probably if you're not used to napping every day, the more you do it, the more efficient you get at it. Like my wife always says, oh, I don't see how you can do that. Like I'll literally sit in it, like on the weekend, I'll sit down in my chair, kick my head back, and I'm sleeping within 10, 15 seconds. I mean, it's pathetic how fast I can shut it off. But about 10 or 15 minutes later, my eyes pop open and I'm ready to go. And it'll really energize me. But I've been doing it for 10 or 12 years. So I think your body gets more efficient at it as you do it. So sometimes a short nap is a good thing. Some corporate places are starting to recognize that, and they have little sleep centers set up or a little couch or whatever where you can go kick back for 10 or 15 minutes. And I think they're finding that the efficiency of the employees in the afternoon is so much higher if they get a short, quick nap. So maybe you can get that started at your office.
Maybe.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And thoughts. This is the last thing. Obviously, negative thoughts and stress and all the things that are put upon us all the time, they rob our bodies of energy. And so, obviously, I don't know how to say to you to get rid of your stress, but some things need to be dealt with. So, if you're in a high-stress situation, you're going to have to get through it. And you have to figure out ways to, I guess it makes this part so much more important, right? So, if you're in a high-stress situation and you're not exercising and you're not sleeping well and you're not eating well, this is when people get into this downward spiral where they just hurt and they break down and they wind up with cancer and Parkinson's. And how many have you heard the term worry yourself sick? It's true. My grandma wound up with Parkinson's after my uncle had cancer. She was a worrier, and she literally worried herself sick. Now, I can't say I ran tests and I know that to be a fact, but I saw it happen.
You're going to lose it. It's starting
Is
to
it going to
really
break?
hard.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Tips over sometimes. I think that's a very, very real thing. And people who worry and have high stress all the time, their body is constantly breaking down, and we see that happen. Where you literally worry yourself sick or worry yourself to death. People wind up with things like cancer and stuff because the body's not efficient, it's not repairing itself, and stress is probably the #1 reason why that process happens. So when we start to break down and we have all this oxidative stress and all this breakdown, stress can be such a huge part of that. So, and I don't know how to help relieve stress, like emotional stress from your life. That's not what I'm qualified to do. But I do know that it's important. So if you have that as an issue, or if you know somebody who's dealing with that and they're sick all the time, they need to deal with whatever that issue is, whether it means getting a different job or changing their relationships or whatever it needs to happen, and that's not always done very easily. So those are, what I tell people is I can't change that part of your life, but what we can do is we can change this. And we can put better food into your system, and we can make your body more alkaline so that you have more energy, so that you repair the damage that's being done by that worrying or by that stress. And if we do that, then when you come out the other side of that stressful situation, your body's still healthy. Whereas if we don't do those things or don't watch them along the way, that's when people come out of these situations and they're broken down and they have diseases and sicknesses and illness and pain and all these problems. So if you know somebody who's suffering with that stuff, you can help them out by helping them get to better snacks, better food, better sleep. But chiropractic can be a big part of it too. We can help take a lot of that physical stress out of their body, and then they need to work on the emotional stress. But it's all part of the same system. So that's it. So go myelin, go. She won't be long. She'll be moving. So that's her. Any questions?
I've been kind of playing around, reading up on these juicers.
Mm-hmm.
Any good? Not
Love
good?
it. Yeah. Juicing is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hassel has a Vitamix that he talks about. They're pretty expensive, but they're pretty amazing, and they have like a lifetime warranty. I just have one of these little bullet things that you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of ours gave it to us. They got like a couple of them for a wedding gifts, and they gave one to us. The thing I like about them, this little bullet thing, is what I'll do at night is I'll throw my fruit in it at night and just put it in the fridge. and then in the morning, throw in my splash of orange juice or whatever else I want in with it. We can even take those omega-3 capsules and break them open inside if you don't like to take the capsule. You can put your omegas in it or your Udo's oil. You can put protein in it, like if you like a little protein shake for like a workout. They're great. Yeah. And the cool thing is you can throw some fruit, but you can also throw some spinach or kale or, you know, that stuff that you maybe don't want to eat, although I think spinach is okay, but and it kind of disguises it by putting that fruit taste in. So, or carrots or, you know, beets or whatever you want in there that you don't really like to eat so much, if you kind of throw it in that juicer and disguise it with some apple or some orange.
Salmon for me.
And I don't know that I want salmon in a fruit but there are other ways that, you know, for a while we had this, it's called Udo's oil, and it's a high omega oil, and we've kind of switched back to more of the marine, that was a plant-based oil, but you can throw flaxseed in your smoothies or your shakes or whatever, but that Udo's oil, it almost makes your smoothie more like malt-like, because when you whip that omega oil in there, it kind of thickens it, and it makes it more like a creamier consistency. So if you like more of a creamy smoothie style thing, you can get what's called Udo's oil and throw in your fruits, throw in your veggies or whatever you want in there, and then throw a little bit of that in there, and it whips it more. So it's more like the consistency of a smoothie rather than just a juice. But yes, juicers, amazing.
I've done that with my almond milk and protein or powder.
Yeah.
And fruits, and it's really good.
And it's kind of fun to mess around with them and see what you can come up with, because obviously if you throw a bunch of fruit in, you're going to get a different taste. You know, if you throw a kiwi in, it's going to be just a little bit more bitter or sweet or whatever. Strawberries, bananas, oranges, whatever. But you can put all kinds of cool stuff in. A lot of athletes will throw in then if they want creatine for more, you know, building more muscle or protein or whatever, they'll throw that in the smoothie as well, and then that way you kind of get it all at once. Because some of those protein drinks, let's face it, they're pretty nasty. They don't taste very good. But if you can disguise it again with a little bit of fruit and get some of that stuff with it, it's a pretty great way to, and that can sometimes be one of your meals. You know, if you want to have that for one of your meals, that's not a bad way to go. You can actually replace a whole meal with a smoothie if you put the right stuff in it. So, good way to get that stuff done.
What was it again that you said about, I used to get those, and a lot of my friends when we were out running in that, these side aches, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's lactic acid being built up in your muscles. And so what's happening then is your body has lost that ability to, you don't have enough oxygen in your system anymore, and so instead of burning oxygen to run this process, it's doing it with sugar. And then you're building up this acid from burning sugar. And that does happen. And that's just something that training over a long period helps to reduce that, because your cardiovascular system becomes more efficient, and you learn how to burn that, or how to get rid of that CO2 faster and keep the oxygen in. Because otherwise, if you haven't run in a long time and you start running, you cramp and you hurt and you ache. It's because you're just not efficient yet. So your body starts to burn sugar faster, and you want to delay that process, keep that down. But you still have to have sugar in your system. For instance, when I did my Ironman last summer, I was on the second loop of my run, and my wife's cousin, who's an excellent triathlete, had told me this before, but he said, you'll know, you have to kind of keep track of your cognitive mind so you know what kind of shape you're in, because your body won't always tell you. Like if you've been conditioning a long time, you can run yourself into trouble. And one of the things that he told me to do is just to do math in your head. So like if you're running and you can do simple math, 4 plus 4 is 8, 16 minus 12 is 4, you're doing all this math, and you can kind of do it in your head, you're probably okay. But if you get to a point where you're like, you know, you can't quite come up with the answer, you're probably a little bit glycogen deficient. And so that's when you'll see a lot of like long distance runners and stuff drink a Coke or a Mountain Dew or whatever, just because it's really high in sugar and it puts it into your system really fast. Now obviously that's not a good healthy choice on a regular basis, but sometimes you just need sugar right now. And fruit can do it too. So like a lot of long distance runs, when you get towards the end, they'll have trays of fruit that you run past, and you can pick up an orange slice or whatever and suck on it. But a lot of them have Coca-Cola, just because it's fast sugar. It's a way to get sugar into your system really quick. And obviously that's not, you don't want to do, and most of those people that do that don't drink Coke ever, except then. They'll also do chicken broth, because it's high in salt. And so if you need that sodium, that salt, we talked about that channel needing sodium and potassium, they'll have banana pieces, like wedges of banana, and like soup, like broth, and it's nasty. It's like just chicken broth, and it's salty as all get out. But when your body needs that, that's what you have to do. So I got to a point in my run where I was not able to figure out my mileage per minute, and that's usually what I'm doing. Like I have to figure out how fast do I need to go to get done with this thing, and I couldn't do it anymore. And in my bag I had a bottle of Mountain Dew, and within minutes I could start to do math again. And so I was just getting too low in sugar, and so that was a quick way to put that sugar back in the system. It's not a great choice for every day, but sometimes you have to do that. But long answer to a short question, but that was lactic acid that's causing that burning or that cramping in there.
Yeah, because I remember there was a couple of us, 3 of us out running, and one of them was having this issue, and I've had it too. But like you said, only from experience, I learned that I kept going out and exercising and running, that it eventually got away. And
Yep.
remember, we said to him, you just got to keep running. You just got to keep going.
That's right. You just got to suck it up and get through it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you can do at that point too is try to remember to throw your shoulders back, take that deep breath, and purse lip breathe, because it holds that oxygen, those alveoli, or those little sacs in your lungs, open longer. You get more CO2 and O2 exchange. So if I cramp after during long runs, like during an Ironman, I'll start to get it across my midsection, and I'll notice that I'm running more like this because I'm tired. So I'll throw my shoulders back, take a couple of really deep breaths, and usually that cramp will go away pretty fast. Not always. Sometimes you have to slow down and walk a little bit. That's okay too. So, any other questions? Well, I appreciate the 3 of you coming today. Like I said, we had a few people that had to bail at the end. I wonder if the heat maybe kept a few people inside where it's cool too. But I do appreciate y'all coming out. I hope that you learned something and a way to get some quick energy. And I usually like to try to have a couple of little nuggets. And so if you can remember that if you're having some energy issues, that snacking during the day is probably the one thing that I want you to take away, because a lot of this other stuff and a lot of this stuff you don't really have to understand to know how to work it. So things like your almonds or your berries or that kind of stuff, making a smoothie, eating more frequently throughout the day, these are ways to help increase your energy. And obviously we need sleep, we need exercise to get oxygen and CO2 transport. But that's how we get abundant energy. And when you do those things all the time on a regular basis, your body gets really, really efficient at it. And you'll see your energy level come up. So if you're tired and have been fatigued, start with a couple simple changes. Add the nuts during the day, add a little bit of the fruit during the day. Stop putting sugar into your diet early in the morning and put a little protein instead. If you do those 3 things, I can almost guarantee you're going to see a change in your energy level throughout the day. And then as you start to make more changes as time goes on, you'll see even more energy come through your system to where you'll have energy to get you all the way through your day. That's what we're hoping for. So, okay.